let's get back onto the interior of this Land Rover.
In today's video, we're going to be fixing the headliner of this 2003 Land Rover Discovery. Like all projects on this vehicle, it took way longer than I expected, but the results are something that I think you should stick around to the end of this video to see. We started off with the A pillars and the B pillars on both the driver and passenger sides, and I had to be careful with these to make sure that I didn't break any of the clips. Otherwise, we were never going to get those pillars back on. Fortunately, everything came off pretty smooth and we were able to release the roof liner from the first little part of the vehicle. Then it was time to move to the rear. So in the boot, there are these little side trim pieces that go right by the safari lights on the top and our rear quarter windows. These were a little bit of a pain to take off, but after taking out a few clips, as well as the grab handles, we were able to take the sides off. But there was one little piece stopping us from fully taking them down that I didn't realize until now. The last little piece are these headrests right here, which are a bit of a pain, I'm not gonna lie. There's like specific hex screws and things like that you've got to take off, and we have to take these off in order to take this little shroud off, which will allow us to get to these front few clips that are just behind it. So let's get to work on that and see if we can figure out how to get these hex screws off. Before I started tearing apart these headliners, I actually did a little bit of research, and I think we can take this shroud off without taking these off. They also don't have a T38 screwdriver, which is what they need. I also forgot that there is also a clip and a screw in that middle console where the light is, and there's also two in this light right here. But we are very close now to this coming out. So I was like, have I missed something, a screw somewhere in this? But it was just this one piece right here. You take that off, and now the whole thing just comes off. Crazy. After removing those pieces and working tirelessly on getting that one little bit of top roof off, we were able to take our final bolts off that were holding the roof liner on in the middle, unclip the lights, and then the roof liner had been fully released from the ceiling. We are very, very close now, so all of that back part is officially off. What we also have to take off is these little surround areas of the sunroofs. Super simple. You take off this clip right here, clip off, leave it here for now, and then you just grab this and off she comes. With a lot of crap. I'm gonna do the rear one as well, and then we can reach behind. Well, it's already coming down, and we can clip out the little button, and that is the final bolt that we need to take the headliner off when we do that. As you can probably expect, Land Rover did not make these headliners to fit inside of the vehicle. So as you pull it out the rear of the vehicle, the front is actually slightly wider. We were able to successfully get it out and then lay it out on my workbench. So after removing the headliner, I needed a little break from it for a second because it was starting to frustrate me. I'd also got some brand new cooling products for the vehicle. These Land Rovers tend to run hot, and that was no exception for this one. The cooling pipes around it, when it gets up to temperature, are absolutely boiling at the moment. And I think that's because the radiator is pretty old and perished. So I got myself a brand new aluminum one that I think will do an amazing job. As I was taking the grill off and looking through, there was going to be a lot of work which would have put the vehicle out of commission for the next week or 2 weeks. So the final thing that I was able to do was clean out the mass airflow sensor. That was a recommendation that was given many times to help make sure that this vehicle was running a bit smoother. So we took off the airbox and we took off the mass airflow sensor, got some brake cleaner, and then cleaned off that mass airflow sensor. We reattached everything, turned her over, but unfortunately, it was still running equally as rough. So back to the drawing board on that one. For now, let's get back over to the headliner because everything was pointing to that direction. Before we can put the new roof liner on, we need to take off all of this old glue so that it doesn't get in the way of the new glue that we're going to put on there. I've got myself a little wire attachment for my drill. I think technically you should have this on some sort of like grinder sort of setup or whatever, but it'll do the same job. And I'm just going to go through and we'll just be shaving off all of the old glue just like that. so that we can get ready to spray the new one in. So let's get started. So I started off using the drill, like I said, with that wire attachment. And then I was using the vacuum to clean up all of the old glue that it was flicking up. But I realized something very quickly. It was creating a huge mess, and it was pretty hard to get that wire brush to be accurate. And I was scraping the actual headliner itself a few times, which I really didn't like. So I had the bright idea of putting my brush attachment onto my vacuum, and that worked perfectly. I was able to give a bit of abrasion to the top of the headliner, and it was able to remove all of the old glue material, as you can see right here in the video. It was extremely satisfying, I must say. So this is gonna be my approach here. We've got the material that we're gonna lay on this end, and we're gonna go this way, because this is the front of the car and that's the back. And I care more about the front being perfect than honestly I do the back, because that's where I'll be spending most of my time. And so that is how we're gonna lay it out. And I think what I'll also do is I'll glue it as I go to keep it tight, I think, rather than just laying it all out. I don't really know what the best approach is, but we'll try a few different methods. What I do know for sure is that this little lip right here, normally the headliner doesn't go and wrap around it. And it's been reported by a lot of people that that is a big reason why they start to fray. So I'm gonna glue it like all the way around the lip to make sure that it works all good. Oh, this is gonna look so sick. Yes, that approach that I said is out the window. I realized I need to lay it out properly and then flatten it down as I go. And then I'll have to cut out all of the holes when I am done laying it all out, I think. So let's go get our glue. Automotive headliner adhesive. And so I'm gonna be using this. Let's see how this goes. I'll set up a time lapse, and if I mess it up, you guys will be the first to see it. So now that the old roof liner was off, it was time to put the new one on. And like I explained to you guys, I'd gone for the black because I think the black with the tan accents is gonna look awesome on the vehicle. And I did cheat a little bit. I had done some research and found someone that had done exactly this conversion, and I just really liked how it looked. But it wasn't all easy. Putting these roof liners on are really hard. I felt like I was wrapping a vehicle, and I think that's something I would be terrible at based on my roof liner job. Everything was going pretty smooth until I got to the vents inside of the roof liner. Those vents don't come out, they're glued fully in, and it was really hard to get around them without creasing and creating grooves in the roof liner. Once we got it fully laid out and I was able to lay down the glue on the main parts of the roof liner, we then moved outside to let that bake in the sun a little bit while I worked on trimming up the edges and the holes where all of the cutouts were to be for things like the visors and also the front overhead trim. It's important that these were cut out because these are also some of the things that keep the roof liner in place. And there you have it. The black trim looked amazing with all of the little tan accents. What I hoped now is that it would look great on the interior of the vehicle, where the majority is also black. Definitely not the best job in the world. There's creases here, there, and everywhere, but it looks a whole lot better than the original one that was on there. And I think once I put it in and I put some of the plastics and stuff on, I think it'll look just as good, and we won't even need to worry about the creases. And over time, we might be able to get the creases out as well. But yeah, I'd say not too bad for my first roof liner job. They had all of these air vents and stuff inside of them. It was a challenge and it was fun. So now we're gonna put it back into the car, and obviously then have to put it back onto the roof so that we can then put the rest of the interior back together. So let's get to work on that. Once we slid it into the vehicle, we just had to make sure that we propped it up with a couple of my tripods. Yes, I was being inventive on this one because it was just me working on the roof. It flows perfectly with the car. I'm really stoked on it. I was able to get the first few bolts in, and then after that we moved back into the front to get things like the skylight trims in, as well as the headliner trim, and then the grab handles to hold everything nice and in place. Putting all of these trims in also helped to straighten out some of the headliner material, so we actually got rid of some of the creases that I'd created when I was initially gluing it down. which is awesome for us. But now, the moment you have all been waiting for. How does that trim look compared to the old rundown one? Well, here's the comparison, and boy, was I stoked. And that's all we have time for in today's video. I hope you enjoyed this one, something a little bit different than what we've previously done on the vehicle, but something fun nevertheless. Subscribe to see more videos on this vehicle as we continue to bring this old girl back to life.